Okay, hi there guys. Can you hear me loud and clear? Just did a quick update there, so things seem to be running a little bit slower than usual anyway. If anyone knows my internet. Hi Peter, g'day Bobby and Gino. Fantastic. All right, we'll rip into it. I'm sure there'll be a few more people joining as we get into it. I hope we had a good weekend. Mine wasn't too bad actually. Thanks for asking. No, it was pretty good, just more relaxing. Going to organise a trip up to Queensland this week and then a trip up to Adelaide, which Peter might know. Adelaide, do a talk in Adelaide next week if anyone's around. If you are in Adelaide and you don't know about it, just email me. We'll get you organised up and running. It'll be on the Wednesday night. So yeah, today's not a bad day today. So we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at where we stand. What we're going to do today is just go. There's two particular trades that have been not so much worrying me the last few days, but they didn't quite go to plan, but it's and now they've kicked off quite nicely, and it's good just to what we'll do is just break them down, have a bit of a look at them, and then we'll also just have a look at take a look at what Bitcoin. I know there's a few crypto traders out there, and that's sort of come back to life last week and really kicked off. So we'll take a look at all that. And then we'll get into, as per usual, just get into some more stocks on the ASX or even anything else you want to take a look at. Feel free. I'll give a bit of an opinion on it. And then we'll let's go from there. So first things first, welcome to anyone that's new. Welcome to TradeSetup and live stream. What are we now? The 8th of April. So it's kicking on, first day of the holidays for us. So if you hear some kids in the background, sorry about that. G'day, Shirley. Yeah, like I said, anyone that's new, you can link into us in trade. Oh, what is it? Twitter, the top left-hand corner. I think that's what you call your Twitter handle. I'm learning as I go. At trade_setup. Facebook, the top right. Twitter's the best, as I usually say. Twitter's the best one to link into there, and probably importantly to subscribe to us at YouTube. You'll see in the bottom right corner if you search TradeSetup capital AU. Which you can see just down here. Search that and you'll see all the latest videos we've done in the past, anything that's interesting. If you've got any emails, any questions, sorry, just email us off to support@tradesetup.com.au and we'll get back to you. If I can answer it, that is. If I can't, I'll just pretend I didn't hear you. Anyway, we'll get up and running. So we'll take a look at the markets now. Let me get rid of this and I'll transfer that. There we go. Should be right to go now. Also, it'd be much appreciated at the end of the stream if you do like what you hear. If I made a bit of sense, it'd be great if you can leave us a like. What am I trying to do here? Markets, indices, that's what I want. Indices, try that again. There we are. So the ASX were up about 33 points. It was a good little, good start today. We had a bit of a clean out. You can see the last few days after that little rally. So it'd be interesting to see. I'm never fully convinced. As we get up to previous highs around the 6,300 mark, let me just change that. Do that again. All right, let's go back to the start. On indices there, on index there, and I want it on the daily. There we go, and I'll get that sticking up. So we can see we're going to get up to previous highs around the 63.50 mark as we get, and especially the fact that we're stretched off those lows, from December, January, we pretty much headed straight up. It's the first sort of real corrective price action we had, but it was really on the daily back to the MAs, and we hadn't really traded for any major anchor level for the upside. So it's really tested, push just popped through on a daily basis through that 61, pretty much finished straight back up, and I think that would have been on the open, probably a -9 in the US. We popped through that 61 and we ended up probably slightly, I think, all in all. Opened at 61.30, closed at 36. It ended up 6 points on that day after pushing through that 61 zone, and pretty much straight up through there to take out the previous highs at 62.70, just in here. And then obviously on the weekly, that probably looks a bit harder, a bit harsher. You can see that rejection. It's big rejection through that previous high. Go to the daily there, which is here. It rejected. So the last couple of days, Thursday, Friday, big sell-off. I think a couple of those days would have caught a lot of people off guard. I would assume it caught me off guard. I think US is up that night. Everything was looking rosy. Europe was up, and we turn around and head straight down. So a bit of a clean out by the fundies, I'd say. Clean out a few of these buys here. So there's two ways for me. There's two ways I'm viewing that. Either that's a double top, and it's just a wash out of the highs like we've done previously. You can see way back here when we took out that previous high at 63.58. You can see on the 30th of August, washed it out and then got sold off from there. Not saying it's going to happen, but there was no really preemptive move prior to that. You can see the market, if we can go back, it was just grinding up here, washed out the highs, bang, straight down again. But probably in all fairness, if we go over here, we've done it previously also. Weekly thick, there we go. You can see it sort of pop up through the highs, pull back, build a high low, all the way up. This was the first sort of sign back then that something wasn't quite quite right. When we come right back down to test the previous high low, we really shouldn't have done that. We should have continued on this trend up, just grinding higher. Sort of decent enough pullback, 2/3 of the move up. This little pullback off a high low, pop up through the highs, same. It just continued to did that. Whereas this push lower cleaned out a lot of these buys, late buys, when we got through that 63, popped back up, washed out the highs, and we fell over. So the action now for me is slightly different. We've got a good grind up, you wouldn't say it's a grind up, a good move up to about 62.75. We had this secondary, I like these sort of moves lower. You can see this push lower. So that would have got the bears a bit excited. Then you got this sort of grind up, pop up, especially on this candle here, that rejection. You can see that was back in 22nd of March. That rejection through this previous level. We'll draw it up. I'll get that just so we all are on the same line there. There we go. Now, just this little sort of level in here, once we got this washout, you've got this move down, grind a bit about, wash out here, push down to 61. So that would have got the bears a bit excited, but the fact that we hadn't really broken down was the key thing. A lot of the time the market can push up, you build your higher low like this, and then the market brings in a lower high just to confuse the bears, but it hasn't broken through an anchor. And that's pretty much what we did at this stage. I'd consider this a minor anchor, this little red candle here down to 61, and then we lifted off that zone. Minor level here, but I wouldn't consider that. If anything, if that's not the anchor's more down to 60.25. So this sort of move lower is really just sucking in your bears, sucking them in and squeeze them straight back out again. You can see with this little pop up. So that for me, just clean all that up again. That move there was more of a trapped in some sellers, squeezing out some of the buys, especially they come late into that trend up. Anyone that's sort of been holding off, seen this rush up, expecting to pull back here, maybe here, and it just didn't come. Sooner or later, they're just going to be watching it, just chasing their tail. And that's what these sorts of moves can do. Dragging a few late buys, the late buys I'm talking about, these moves are designed just to clean them out. And it's not a bad little thing, I think, because what they do is drag them in, doesn't break the anchor. So a lot of people are still in the market, are still holding in, the anchors are still holding up, and then it just spikes back up again. But what we're doing, we're right up into sort of this zone now at the moment. We're right up into that zone. So we are stretched up there, and it's going to become a bit harder for new buyers just to justify jumping into the market up here. If you haven't already, you haven't got in, we started really loading the boat around here once we got up through this level. What was about 59.25, 59.30, say. All that could have easily led to a sell-off down here. Instead, we popped up through. Okay, then it was time to go for it because the next level was right up at 62. Got through that. So really the next levels are really up to 63 to 63.50. And we're approaching that now, this previous major high. So you can see the market's going to get tentative. But it's just this move that I don't mind at all. We didn't break through, whether that's your anchor or the 60-50 zone, 61, 60-50, whether that's your levels there. So it hasn't broken a key level to this major uptrend. The weekly's still intact. The trend is still up. We sat on top of the MAs, squeezed a few of these late buys out, gone straight back up. But the fact is we come crashing straight back down the last, Thursday, Friday of last week. The thing is, there's more and more talk between China and the US. It's starting to look a lot more positive. Trump's coming out and saying a few things. He's always beating the drum, and whether it's for votes, they're coming to elections, he's trying to get a second term or whatever it is. I love the bloke anyway. There's something I was watching on the news about the wall he got in front of the only part that was built, the new wall that was built, stood in front of a press conference. Looked great, television perspective, but either end of the wall hasn't even been fixed. So he does like to talk it up a bit, and he's not scared to spin a few untruths as well to get what he wants. So yeah, I think what he's really doing, he could be just beating it up a bit, but what it's doing is really dragging this market a bit more positivity into the market. The US is going well; it's dragging us up as well. We got copper sold off a bit. The other commodities done pretty well. US numbers come out on Friday night, payrolls better than expected, which is a good sign that the labour market, which is the main focus for the Fed, is very strong over there. So jobs are still growing, the number of jobs. But the thing is, I think the wages over there didn't go up as much as expected. I think previously they went up by 0.4%. And then I think this last reading on Friday was only up 0.1. So they are going up, which is great, but there's just a bit of a sign where maybe they are slowing down. So there's a few conflicting messages over there, although those numbers are the main focus of the Fed. So anything to do with jobs, a robust jobs market is always a good sign. So that's what we got on Friday. Lifted the US, lifted us after hours market. So overnight, European and US sessions, and then we've opened up and looking quite handy today. Let's just see the intraday action. That's not the intraday action, is it? Okay, let's just go to intraday. I just want to see what it's doing. Yeah, so you can see this is just intraday. Lifted, a bit of a pullback, set on top of the MAs, pushing back up again. Maybe we're still a bit contained, like we typically can be in the Australian market, but all in all, what I'd be looking for here, I think long story short, is we've got the two key levels. Actually, we'll mark that up, different color. So your two key levels really, say it's down at 61, and then we've got this level up here. I'm just keeping an eye on. So your two key levels, all right? We've pushed up. So we pushed up, pulled back, pushed up to the highs. This is your two legs down. We touched on that support and we've rallied straight back up. What I'd be looking for now, the price action I'd be looking for really is maybe a few for the bulls, a few inside higher levels, and see if we can get that move up off an inside higher level, where you've seen the market trying to push down, but buyers are stepping up at higher levels, is showing their hand, showing their strength, and then that should really squeeze anyone that's sort of sold it in here the last few days, squeeze them out, and I would expect that high to be taken out pretty quickly and a drive up to 63.50 at least, potentially straight through. We don't know just yet. What I wouldn't want to see is pretty much the reverse. If we've popped up and we start holding some lower highs and grind our way lower, and then I think this level down at 61 may come under attack, and that would mean that it's just a washout, a clean out of the highs, and we're getting some selling pressure coming to the market at this 63 to 63.50 major key resistance zone. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, see how that all goes. Any questions there before we tick over? Here we go. So Dow, that is still looking good. It's extended into the all-time highs. Nothing really to talk about just there. We've just got this little pullback. It sat straight on top of those MAs on the weekly, on the daily as well, high lows. So it's all positive signs. Is if you can sort of neglect this big sell-off, this big beating down, in hindsight, it's a great buying opportunity, but that created a lot of fear because of where we were, this sort of double top action, lower highs, press down, we bounced straight back again. So this most recent price action of the run up is looking quite bullish. It's quite positive. So this could easily, on the Dow, easily lead to a break of the highs, and then we'll have to assess it as we go from there, what's going to happen. S&P, same, holding higher levels. So until something breaks, which is really on your daily, it's just below 2,800 on the S&P, the broader market, that's still bullish. Whether we can squeeze up in this move up to these highs before we have a pullback, and then if we do pull back, we'd be looking to pull back to the MAs if you're bullish. Just pull back to the MAs, build another high low, and then go again. But either way, those two markets are down, looking good. FTSE, that's not the FTSE, is it? What's that? The CAC. So the FTSE is still holding higher levels, and that's off that move down in December. So it's been bullish all this year, but looking quite good. The weekly, we're coming back up into the highs again. So we'll just have to see. They've got Brexit issues. See what pans out there, whether they get the delay. If they get a delay, I think they're going to vote on the 10th in a couple of days. The EU is going to vote. If they get the vote on an extension, that could be bullish for the FTSE. We'll see how that plays out. And then the DAX, same sort of thing. DAX growth is a bit of a problem still. The global growth is still a bit on the back burner at the moment, but I think what's taken the forefront is obviously what's happening between China and the US. So, sorry guys, just got a call coming through. I'll get rid of that. Done. So yeah, well, I mean, all the markets are looking quite good. Pete, Labor victory to do to our market by the room seller factor. I'm not sure, to be honest. Yeah, I'm not sure what it'll do. Then they're going to inherit a good budget, aren't they? I'm a surplus, so it just depends what they do. I don't follow politics much. I think they're all pretty much the same. I'm a bit negative towards politics, to be honest. Just trade what I see. If we see the ASX going up if they're voted in, so be it. It could be a push up into the highs. I think we're pretty much following what's happening in the global market at the moment, and with China. But yeah, could be proven completely wrong. Could follow it to the T. All right, so what do we got? We'll look at the two trades I want to just go over. All in all, I just want to see what happens if we can hold up, good positive sign today, if we can hold up around here and build those higher lows, which I suspect we're going to do. Just sort of touch on the MAs a bit. I'd expect us to get through 6,300 because we've been landing around between, the trade deal. And I don't think, even though they're talking it up, Trump did say in the next 4 weeks it could be a deal made. I don't think it's that simple. I think it's going to take a bit more time, and I think it's going to be positive to the market. Just keep dragging up any sort of positive news on it. It's pushing higher, at least stepping in the right direction anyway. All right, what I want to do before I bang on too much is look at a couple of trades we got going and just break it down slightly. We've got GAR, so Grange Resources now. From what I understand, the fundamentals are very, very good. And they're lagging the overall market. I mean, was it iron ore? So iron ore's kicked off quite well. We know FMG's gone well. A lot of the other iron, Mount Gibson, they're all kicking off quite well. Now this one we got in at 27.5 through just on this little pop up here. You can see, looking great, but it kept selling down. And then what had happened, if anyone watches the intraday action, there was a massive seller just stacked up on the offer. You're probably still there at 20. You can see there at 29 is 1.6 million. So he was stacked up at 27.5, 28, and then he had some more at 29, I think. And they've just been chewed through. So there's been some positive news just come out today. And you can see that significant increase to Savage River Mineral Resources. So, and from the fundamentals, they got cash on hand. They got some really good fundamentals coming out, which really should have been bullish for the market, but it was just being held down by this massive seller. And if you were watching it day in, day out, and you were trying to trade it, there's no real need to buy at the offer because there's enough liquidity there. You just better to sit on the bid, put it at say 27, 26.5. It kept trading 27 too. And what those bigger offers do, if you ever get to watch the market depth, or if you do spend a bit of time just to get a feel of what the overall market's doing, what the overall price action is doing. If there's a massive offer there, and anyone that could be tentative about it, or may have been holding it from down here or holding it in here. I mean, we got it at 27.5, so we spent time oscillating between gains and losses. And you don't really want to take a big hit on this. We had our stop at 24. Percentage-wise is a fairly, decent chunk. But the overall price action for me is bullish. If we flick back to the weekly, you can see, had a good spike up here, got sold down quite heavily, built an inside level, which led to another spike. It didn't quite reach the highs, but each time it's had these pullbacks, it's building higher levels in here. This little spike down, a higher level here. So I was really, from the weekly chart, I was looking for this to accelerate higher. It was holding, even on the weekly, these little pullbacks, it's holding higher levels, high level at 26. So flicking down to the daily, you can see this nice base that's worked from. It's cleaned out a lot of those late traders. This was in here. Those buyers here, cleaned them out, and we're prior to moving up through that 27 mark, and that was your key level. We pushed up through 27. So the fact that we spent a lot of work through here since 2007, mid 2007, holding higher levels, and then we've just broken up through a key level around 27. I expected this price action to really start accelerating, and that's why we had that's why we like to buy. We bought it through that 27.5. Now, as it played out, it was that offer. The offer kept sitting there. And it really, for me, it wasn't a professional offer. It wasn't really doing anything. Sometimes they can load up on the offer to try and force it down, and they're, force the market down. They keep loading up, bringing their offer down maybe, but the market wasn't moving. They were just sitting there. And once the market decided, figured out that they weren't moving it, they were just basically sitting on the offer at 3 different levels, big 1.5 million shares, and the market knew they weren't moving. Then the market wasn't, one, willing to buy it up, and two, they weren't willing to pull their bids down. Does that make sense there, guys? They weren't willing to just drop it down a bit, trying to get a better price. So what they were doing is really just working at around 26 and a half. You can see this pull back to 26. Those offers didn't move at that time. It was just someone's trying to get ahead of that. Someone that's been maybe holding it in here, holding here, getting a bit nervous. Probably your retail traders. I don't like to say that, but they'll see the market depth, see a big offer, get a bit nervous, jump ahead of it, hit the bid at say 27, down to 27, 26 and a half, maybe 26. They want out, but someone kept reloading. And if you're watching that, there was more of a professional, I think, trying to build a position. You can see they would keep jumping back on the bid. Every time we got hit, they were back on there with a bit more, So any of these sellers that kept pressuring down, they were soaking it up. And what we got today, good news flow has just triggered some buying, and someone just smacked the offer for about 1.5 million shares. It got pushed up, and we've just 29 is the key level now. So that's sort of the last remaining, you can see, big offer that's left in the system. After that, you would expect if it gets through 29, starts trading 29.5, 30, I would expect this to have a little spike up and really kick on, especially when it's backed by some really good fundamental news. So that's one to keep an eye on it, and that's the one because I was watching that market depth, it probably kept me from, one, tightening up that remaining risk too much, because you don't want to get tagged. This could have easily led to if you're a pure technical trader, this spot just in here, you can see there's 3 candles here. It was touching on 28. That could have easily led to a lower high, triggered some more technical selling, but it just didn't play out that way. I don't think people were fooled by those big offers. And what's happened is the news come out today, bang, triggered it up. So I expected this momentum to continue. It might take a bit of time, but I think all in all, once we've cleared out those bigger offers, and we've done some good volume today, 5 million shares, or maybe more than that, probably $1.5 million worth. Some good volumes gone through that. I would expect that momentum to continue and keep driving that market higher. So that was one. And it was just a matter of breaking it down. The structure looks great. Higher lows were holding, longer term higher lows holding. The picture looks good. It just had to struggle around 27. The overall market 9 was taking off. FMG, Mount Gibson, all those sorts of shares. So you would have expected this to eventually kick on. But again, you've got to be, with things like this, because there's such a big offer, you've got to have that tentative mindset, that careful mindset, because you never do know what's happening. And if they were starting to bring those offers down, I would be a lot more nervous, and I would be happy to probably tighten up my stock, because it's not what the known is, it's what the unknown is. And why is somebody selling? You've got to ask yourself these questions. But the fact that offer didn't move, I was happy to hold that, leave the risk on a bit lower, and just let it pan out, to see what happens. As of today, it's looking quite nice. So that was one. The other one I just want to touch on. VTG, which is a good one. Now I know Davin's in. I'm assuming that's Davin. Nice W to this on the stochastic. So Dav loved these sorts of things. These little washouts. You can see that candle. If I'll just get the index. That's VTG. Yep, that's VTG. So what got me interested in this one is not so much the daily just yet. If anyone knows, every time we talk about something, if you're analyzing something, even though the daily can look good, this kind of market, when it's a bit stretched and what we were just talking about, 6,300, you've got to go back to the weekly to see if that weekly is either heading down or heading up. So what you'd want is that support by the weekly charts, some really good, nice, positive structure or bullish structure on the weekly to support a nice move on the daily. So this is what we had at this stage. We were looking at about here before this spike lower. Now this was a dividend come out on that day. I think you had to hold it. What date was that? I don't know what the div was. There was ex-div date on the 28th. So that was a spike lower, ex-div date, which you would expect. That would have cleaned out a lot of stops too. If anyone's got their sell stop under there, cleaned them out, but then it's finished positive for the day. And then from there, it was up, all up. So we got involved at, let me just see, where did we get involved? 155.5. So it was on this candle here on the 1st of April. After that big washout, after the divs, you got a couple of good solid days. We're happy. Okay, once we got through a couple of these lower highs, and the low high was essentially at 155. Once it broke through there, I wanted to be in, and because then it's shown you that it's bouncing off the MAs on the daily, continuation trade on the daily, and if you go back to the weekly, look at that weekly. I mean, I know it's been knocked about, got knocked down here, big, smashing back down in 2017, but it's spent the last 1.5 to 2 years repairing itself. It's held that level through $1, started to lift off $1. If we just break that down, I'll just draw that up, the key levels. So for me, that weekly, I like that weekly. It was early days. You're looking at, that's a key level around 160. You've got that support zone around 90 to $1. And you can see the way it's come crashing down here, bounced off that level, come back down, retested the highs, had to come all the way back down. It couldn't get through this first time. It's come back down to retest this the low, test it again, even a bit of a washout here. So you got this lower high in play as it was bounced off here, had another retest. So the selling was still in play at that stage. But then what we saw, this is your first sign. It's come back down here and it's held this level at $1 and then started to lift. Then you've got a nice little pop up here, and you can see it's starting to accelerate. So you've got to move up here. It was a bit up until we got through that level at around $1.25. Say, we're not quite out of the woods on the sell side. There was still selling pressure, maybe selling pressure. It was just starting to show signs. We've got test down the lows, test down here, a big test here and a washout. This is the first time you're really starting to hold after all these tests at that level. We can't crack through that level. Anyone that was selling in, if you're selling into that level, you're short or whatever. If you're getting short into that level, you're going to be thinking twice and then closing out, which means buying it into the market. If you weren't getting out or if you're looking to buy, that high low is probably your first sign of confidence back into that stock, into VTG. And then you got this little pop up here, reacted off that $1.25 mark, then the buyer stepped straight back in again at about $1.10 as opposed to say down at $1. And then we pushed it through this level at about $1.25, and then from there it's looking good. So for me, you can see it's starting to, after this big sell-off, spent a lot of time repairing itself. It's taken a lot of time. We're starting to hold higher lows now, and for me, there was just another opportunity, and a really good opportunity. It's your first serious move back to the MAs. If we go back to the daily, your first serious move, the MAs were looking good. A good clean out here of that $1.40 mark on that secondary move down. And if you can see that secondary move down, pullback, pop up, a deeper pullback down to 135. We'll see the volume actually. Good point there. And you can see this volume's increasing here. It's not significantly higher volume, but it's been quite solid volume, and this little push up through here. Can you see that, guys? Can you see just what we've got our eyes on there? So for me, Now I'm looking for a potential, we're probably 76.5. I'm looking for a potential partial at 80. I don't know what that's going to give us. It's somewhere probably around the 15% mark. Let me just find out. At the moment, we're up 12.5%. I think that's probably going to be around the 15 to 16% range on that first half, and then we'll just try to tighten up the risk on the second half and see how we go. So I hope that makes sense, just breaking down those two trades. So for me, that weekly was looking really solid. You've got the daily picking up after we broke through the 125 mark on the weekly off a higher low. That was your first. You can see everything sort of below the MAs, below the MA here. This is the first time on the weekly we started holding a higher level. The daily, the MAs, the action was sitting. It was consolidating around the MAs off the lows at 90 cents, sort of off that dollar mark, pop up, then pull back at a higher level, holding the MAs again at about $1.10. Yeah, $1.10, and then we started to lift. Then we started to get a bit more acceleration once we got through this $1.25 mark, and then your first pullback into the MAs, big spike lower rejection, and then it started to lift, and we got that solid, solid volume. And any move higher has been supported by some solid volume. So it's looking good for now. We're going to see if we can take a partial up at 180, and then see where we go to from there. But this leg up could really start to get a bit of a move on. So if you add on, I'm just guessing. Let me get it a bit better. Say from about $1 up to about $1.60, 60 cents, somewhere from $1.35, $1.40. It could take us easily up to $2. And then you're going to come into, that makes a bit more sense because you're going to come into that weekly resistance zone, potentially around $2. Now, if we smack straight through it, great, game on. And we'll just see how far we can go. But I really do like that weekly chart, and coupled with the daily move, it's fantastic. All right, enough of my ramblings there. But I just wanted to go through, break down those two trades for us, or for you, not for us. Break them down, what we're looking at, and I think if you can really keep an eye on different things, especially the longer term charts. Look at the longer term charts. If it's heading south, then just beware if you're going to go long. I guess what you can do is open it up. If you find out the weekly, it's just a weekly pullback and it's holding some higher lows, say like in here. Let's go back again. So this weekly structure like this is starting to holding a higher level. This was a weekly high low off the MAs. We're just dropping down to the daily to refine the entry. So the weekly's on your side, the daily's looking really good and on your side. Then I think what you can do is really start to open up the trade a bit. Now, if there's nothing wrong with a daily entry. I mean, say the way I'm looking at it, say this pullback, you're looking here, deep pullback on the stochastics, gone from overbought to oversold at a higher level. So it's just a good sign that the buyers are stepping in. So you got this same price action, but the weekly was heading down. I might just have to be a bit quicker with my entries. Okay, sorry, exits. What am I talking about? I might have to be a bit more precise on my exits, just knowing that maybe that weekly pressure is going to continue. It's going to continue down. It's just a bit of a bounce. It's going to hold another lower high in the weekly, and I'm going against that with my daily, with my entry. I just have to know what's in the background to make sure that I'm not going to try to hold this and shoot for the moon. Does that make sense? Now, if it does go through those weekly levels, so be it, we'll let it go. But I love things that are, and Grange, might as well just say the word, Grange weekly. You can see that weekly there is looking good too. So getting through 30, if it punches up through 30, then really the next level is not up to about 40 cents, then potentially right up to about 65 cents. So this has got legs on the weekly. You can see it's slowly starting to curve up. All right, so I think the fundamentals are great support for Grange, and the daily is kicking off nicely now too. We'll see how that closes on the end of the day, but the weekly is early days, and the daily, which is really good for this daily chart, daily continuation, and I think that's going to start to pick up some steam soon. Does that make sense there, guys? All right, let's get into it. Look at whacking some codes. There's something I want to look at. But Shirley's got two, Amazon and SPY. Let's take a look at that while everyone else is putting in. Oh, sorry, I want to go over Bitcoin too, didn't I? Just before we go. I thought we'd just, I know there's a few currency traders, we call them, crypto traders. So on this run up, Bitcoin, what was that, back on the 2nd? So about 6 days ago, we started lifting, and you can see that the price action really took off. And that was, for me, it was probably out of the blue a bit. I was looking at this day in, day out, but you can see on this is a 30-minute chart. I'll put it to sorry, I've probably just stuffed it up. I'll put it on I'll go back to here. Let me go back to Bitcoin. Now you can see it was holding these levels on this is the daily. Bitcoin was starting to hold, it popped up here off this level around 30.50, 30.60, 30.70, 3,100, say. Pushed down, good pop back up. And then you can see this market, the way it's edging down here, was a good sign that potentially buyers in someone's loading up in a position, or selling's not as confident anymore with this move down. How do we do that? Press the wrong button by accident. So you've got selling pressure coming here, but they're not as confident. So as opposed to this really big fall out of the sky there, you can see the market's just capitulated there from above, was it 6,500, sold down, bounced back up, and then the selling pressure coming in is not as strong as what it was through here. This completely wiped out the bids, took out all the buyers, cleaned them out. Anyone that was probably trying to buy it and then just turn around and squeeze back out of the market. Here's different price action, and then you started lifting. So this level here was a high low around 32.62, popped up to the previous high at around 42, 42.20. Then you got this little reaction off that, which you would expect. Reaction off these highs, reaction, and then it's held high low since, and it's broken. If you can see this sort of downtrend, it's broken out. Whoops, that's not what I want. And it's holding higher levels. And then you've got, all of a sudden, we come up into this zone around 41.50 or so, 4100, and then just boom, straight through. So if I can go back to that chart there, I'll just get rid of these. So at that stage, we're looking, I'll go back to the 30, I want to go back to the 1 hour chart. So if we couldn't get involved there, you want to see where you can get involved in the action, okay? And the market's really spiked up, which you would expect a bit of profit taking. Anyone that bought it through here got a good healthy spike through 5,000, pulled back, and now we're still holding high levels. So back at this stage when we alerted it, we thought it can either, you can do one or two things. You can see that this market is pushing up, and then we got some solid selling, some fairly solid selling just in here. This was back on the 4th. No, it was Thursday, wasn't it? Thursday night, solid selling in here, and then we started holding some minor lower highs, and then we come back in to retest 48.13. So at this stage, you just want to assess what's going to happen. And we saw that it just started getting, it was an each way bet, whether you're going to hold lower highs or whether the buyer's going to come in and support it off 48.13. So we had two scenarios drawn out. The green, which was just, I wanted to see that little washout, that little pullback, washout, which you can see, and then that pop up. Let's just actually delete that. It's getting a bit messy, isn't it? Let's just go back to here. 30-minute chart. Is that what I'm trying to look at here? 48, yep. So it was this, we're looking at whether it's just going to hold a higher level through here. I wanted to see at that stage a bit of a washout, and you can see it started grinding lower, and the market did, it started lifting again, pushing up into the highs. This big flush out here, which is what we'd love to see. And if we start holding higher lows after that, which we did, the market to me is starting to look bullish, or even more bullish. So it'd be interesting to see from here what Bitcoin does and what the cryptos do. But I think this is a really constructive move up now. We've got some higher levels holding. We've got even those flush outs. It's always good to see when the market gets a bit ahead of itself coming into a high, and you get that sharp correction lower, and it's met by a good, some really good buying pressure just to lift the price. I'm completely off the mark, aren't I? Sorry, guys. All right. Get you up your chart. Fantastic. There we go. So all that's gone to waste, hasn't it? Anyway, what we're seeing now, I was just talking about this little move up here. You got higher levels holding, a bit of a clean out here, a bit of a lift, but it's all within that previous high at about, what's that, 53, say 53.50. The market's flushed out here, and you can just see these flush outs, but they're still, what they're doing is still holding higher levels. So we got a higher level here, off this higher level in here, off higher levels in here. So you can see all that is just continually holding higher levels. As we get up to the previous high, I wouldn't be surprised if we have a little pullback and a consolidation around that, just below that high, and it's going to slam up through 5,300. And I think what's going to happen from there, well, this is my theory anyway, is we're going to get a move up to that 6,000 level. And that's your previous breakdown where we flushed out 6,000. It was holding up. You can see all these buyers buying it in as the selling pressure was continuing. They got flushed out for that move down, and we're starting to lift again. So this lift up here, I would expect could take us up to the 6,000 mark. And then it'll be interesting whether we just, whether the market can just, I'll draw it up here. Whether the market can just keep holding higher levels in here, whether we do it like this, or whether we sort of prime up into that level, a bit of a flush out, and then start to go again. But I think the bulls are back into Bitcoin, and that's lifting. You can see if we get over to Ethereum, Ethereum is another one that's got some really nice structure. On the hourly chart there, it's really constructive through here, and that was over quite a bit of time, good period of time here. Bit of a flush out down here, holding a higher level, higher levels in here. And if we go to and just draw out those higher levels, you can see lows down here, higher level in here, higher level through here, and you got these minor, another higher low up here, and it's really been launching into new highs. So I would expect that price action to continue and really kick on. Whether we're extended up here and we have to pull back maybe somewhere around below 180, 175, and we start to get buys run in here and really pressure the market higher. Ripple is a bit the same. You can see it's had some choppy price action through, and that was from around the 21st of last month. Sorry, 21st of February. Good lows here, a good high low, which built through there, and that was around 30, so just under the 30 mark. Nice high low here, and it's just recent price action. If we can hold on Ripple and just consolidate just below the highs, I think if we consolidate here and hold the higher level, that's going to pounce up through. It's really good. It's good to see once you got this big press up, and that's when your first bulls, people who have potentially boarded up into that resistance zone, that second, they're still a bit bearish, as in still a bit tentative to really jump on board, and they're quicker to take some profit off the table of this run up. And then what you've seen is this press lower, okay, and then it's retested that zone around 32 to 33, and then we got another press out, and it's just cleaned out that level with this spike up, and that was back in probably Friday night. But what we're doing now is just consolidating just below those highs. I like to see that consolidation, and if we can hold these higher levels, you can see sort of minor levels in here, then I think that along with Bitcoin, if Bitcoin kicks on, you get Ripple kick on and Ethereum kick on. I think we could get, it'll be interesting to see if we can get another bull run on cryptos. They've been quiet for a while after all the volatility we've seen in the past, but it's something really to keep an eye on. All right, let's get off that. Let's have a look at, sorry about that move, guys. Let's get into some stocks. What do we got? We got BSL from Paul. Any from John? DCC. We'll have a look at that. Magna. No worries. ORE. All right, we'll start from ORE. Can. I'll get rid of that chart there. I'll go straight to the daily. All right, so this is your weekly chart of ORE. I'm watching this one. I just don't like the way it spent most of 2008 just going down, and we haven't really cracked out of that downtrend on that weekly just yet. The good thing is it's coming right down into a zone. It doesn't mean that it's, you just jump in and buy. You'd want to see some sort of, for me anyway, you've got a level through here, say around 150. Then you've got some more levels around, say, 275, and we've got that $3 mark, which is only a minor level. But what it's got that press higher. The market's tried, failed up at the previous high, had to have a deeper correction down to around 275, say 260, where we started to lift again, and we got this move up here. It's come all the way back down, and you've got this move down, which really, maybe it's not over just yet. I would prefer to see this move up through, off this higher level, up through $4, and then break out of this downtrend, which it's just about done now on the weekly. I mean, we could easily just hold this level and start pressing down again, wipe out these higher levels, take out 3, back down to 2, even back down to $1.50. We don't know what's going to happen. Okay, but looking at this weekly, for me, we're not out of the woods just yet of this selling pressure coming down. It is, look, there's still a bit of volume. You can see here, some good volume coming through on this selling. It's been quite constant on the weekly. So if we get into the daily, and just to see what we're doing up towards that, as we're pressing up to $4, yeah, it's pretty much the same for me. I think we're getting extended up here. You can see this little run up here, even though it's good, some good volume coming through. This press up from 325, we could stall. We could stall right here. We could stall up at $4 and just roll over again. So I think when we get that weekly selling pressure come back in, so ideally, what I'd be keeping an eye on is that press up through 4, potentially your first pullback to the MAs, and just see how it reacts on the pullback. If we start getting buyers coming in at higher levels, then yeah, it could be worth looking in, and we get that, and then it's back to the daily, because I would expect that it's broken out of that downtrend. We're starting to get a higher level. We're starting to get, where is it? This break just in here. Let's just actually draw that up a bit clearer. This is what I'm looking at here on the weekly. This downtrend through here. We're not out of the woods. If we can get up through 4, ideally push up through 4, I think this contraction lower could be over. This could be a line in the sand around $3, and then you're looking for what happens on your first sort of pullback. Do we get a nice constructed pullback? And this is here. Actually, let's just look at that there. So this is ideally this move, what we're going to get, or potentially what we'll be looking for. See if we can get a constructive move here, and then what happens, we get high lows hold on the daily and break up through the previous highs, and then on we go. That's what I'd ideally be looking for. But I would be keeping this one, just for me, I would personally be keeping on the radar until we get out of this contraction on the weekly charts. Hope that makes sense here anyway. CAN was the other one. Is that what you had, Vin? So CAN, I think there's a bit of this move up here. I'm guessing that was on the back of news. That was at the 19th of March. Just see what news come through then. Revised expansion plans. So obviously some positive news that drove it up 37%. So you've still got, I think in the US, your marijuana stocks are doing quite good. There's a bit of another push into that sector or into those stocks. So we're probably getting a bit of overflow effect. You don't know. We've had this big pullback on CAN, and you can see that was met. That news was met with some good volume, and it's consolidating around those highs, which is a pretty good sign. So if I flick it back, so from a daily perspective, you've got this big sell down here. Again, I'm not too convinced. I think that's your key level at 248. So these highs at 248. I would prefer to see it push up through 248 and then see what happens on a pullback. And that's probably because of what's happened on the weekly charts. It's really been pressured down. Looking at that weekly, we've got, this was a good run up, so pretty much one run up there, and we've had this pullback. You've got your lower high way up here, and really we haven't really done too much. Probably is the first time we had a bit of a tried to go high. You know, the bulls started to make a bit of a fight back, and then we got this press down. You know, it's probably come into this level around 150. I don't call that, even though it's coming, that's where it broke out. For me, not a key level. Anyone that's been holding it from here, from that breakout level, there's got to be stops there. It's got to be a reasonable place to put some stops where it would be a key level. So for me, not really a key level in there. So it's whether or not that 175 zone, just in here, I'll draw that in a different color. So whether that 175 can hold up, and then your key levels around that 250. So I'd ideally like to see this daily. I'd like to see it break up and then see what happens on your first pullback. Again, because it's the weekly is still under pressure and nothing just yet has said bye to me. I mean, I could be left on the sidelines. It doesn't bother me in this market. We've got a couple of good stocks running for us, so I'm happy to be left on the sidelines. If this pops up, we could just get a bit of a pop, and then roll over again. And the weekly takes charge. We press right back down to 175. So ideally, I want to see what happens on your first pullback. And that probably, look, it's probably showing some good signs of just getting out of that contraction on the weekly. So, yeah, it's worth keeping an eye on. And I think, you know, if you're definitely going to buy it, probably you can buy it through 239 potentially. That's where I would be happy, and I have tight risk on that just below 110, and just see what happens and see if that's the start of a good move, weekly move up, and then just follow it from there. Just tighten your risk as you go, but I'd ideally just want to see what happens on that first pullback on that weekly move. What else we got? What else we got? BSL. BSL, on the just looking at the daily, we're bounced off the MAs here, which is great. And that was after a solid. We've had this move down, probably with the overall market. Pretty much the overall market drove the market down coming into December. January, you just got that lift with the overall market lifted as well. This is your first. If you're watching all this price action, you're looking to get in. You could have got in here, obviously. In hindsight, that would have been great. But your first technical pullback was to that 1350 mark. You're buying just in there at that zone, somewhere in there, maybe a push through 14. So, and your stops are just below, say around 13, $1 stop on that. And just seeing where it goes to from here. We're getting a bit extended for me on the daily up here. So for me, I wouldn't be buying just up here. I just want to see what happens. If I'm not in, I want to see a nice constructive move back to the MAs. Potentially what we saw back through, what was that, through March. Constructive move, sitting back, building that higher level, and then seeing where you got your entry. So if we go to the weekly to see what's happening. So for me, I don't like the weekly as such. You know, you've got a good move up here. And I mean, maybe we can discount that move back in December. Let's just get rid of that. Let's just go in here. So we've got this sort of a move higher. It's broken down. We've got that broke down here. So we don't know whether this is going to be part of one move. We're coming back in potentially to where it broke out. You don't know. And we're going to roll over for a secondary move down on your weekly. Who knows? Or at least a test back down to that 1050 mark. So that's why from that weekly, I'll be steering clear of this just at the moment. If you're trading off your dailies, which is nothing wrong with that, you're looking for a pullback to sit on top of the MAs. You're looking for the higher low on your daily, somewhere where you know exactly where your risk is going to be, and then jump in from there. So for me, I'm kept out. It's sort of that that fight between the weekly charts and the daily charts. The weekly is saying, okay, it's bounced back up from December. You got this nice little bounce up through January, December. But is that getting a bit stretched? The MAs are down. Is this just going to V-shaped recovery and go straight back up and just dragging buyers back in? Who knows? Or are we going to get a lower high and at least some sort of consolidation, at least a pullback from your weekly to test a higher level, retest the lows? You don't know. But that's ideally if we get this pullback on the weekly, maybe 11 or 12, and we start getting a major high low in the weekly charts, then yeah, I'll be looking to jump back in and refining it back down to your daily just to for your entries. What else we got? Range DCC. Let's go to that one. DCC. Yeah, that's a tough one. These little ones, tougher to trade for me than Magna. They're good ones. I mean, you can see the good thing about this. You've got some really good volume that's just come in through April. So the 3rd of April, some decent volume coming the next day on the 4th. And we got a little minor couple of red candles there, which wasn't met with heavy volume, which is a good sign too. And we've got a pickup in volume today. And we're just taking out that high at, what's that, 8.2. I think we could be it'll be interesting to see how we get around that 10-cent mark. So anyone that doesn't know, you trade in increments of 0.01 of a cent up until 10 cents, and it flicks over to half a cent. So a lot of the times these can get pushed up to 10. Anyone that's been buying it, say 7 cents, you got a 30% gain there. Pop up through 10, and they work it through 10, and it could just roll over from there. Don't know what the fundamentals are like. It could be a really good fundamental story, what's driven it up. Let's just look at what news has potentially driven this up. ASIC's price query, half-yearly reports, initial directors' interest. So there's not much for me to base any fundamental reason why it's come up. US Investment Bank. Yeah, so I'm not seeing anything solid enough for me. But all in all, I mean, if you're going to buy it here, you probably have to drop it down to your intraday charts just to minimize your risk, or buying here with your risk just below this low at 6.6 cents. So it'd be interesting to see how this one goes. But all in all, it has picked up off these lows. You know, you got lows at around 4 to 5 cents. We've lifted on volume, which is always a good sign. See if that volume can take us through 10 and we get this another spike up, or whether that's going to stop at 10. It's going to be traded around that 10-cent mark, 10 to 10 and a half, and then the game's played, it drops back down again, and then a lot of these late buys, below 10 have been cleared out, and then everyone's sort of left holding the bag on that one. But we'll see. It hasn't, for me, that's not too constructive off these charts. It's just the last few days. Why is volume come in? Okay, why is it come in? Maybe it's getting played. Maybe it's a fair reason. Maybe it's a capital raise. Don't know. Pumped up before a capital raise. There's all these things we've got to assume. So yeah, that's probably it for me on that one. I'll be keeping an eye on DCC anyway. What's it called? Digital X. What's that weekly chart? This is what you'd want to see. Off the weekly chart, ideally, this goes right back to 2017. This is what I want to see, a spike up through to the top side, some good volume come in, and when it pulls back on light volume, sits on top of the MAs. If we can just draw that, already lost it, haven't I? What is happening here? It doesn't like me today. Okay. Just dribbling that back in. So it's this zone we're looking at. If you drop it down to the daily, there might have been I'm just going to have to drill in on this a bit more. Yeah, so if you're looking at the weekly chart's got your high low. So this was your high low on the weekly. We've got volume cuts starting to come in. It was around 23rd of October. Let's just see what happened. That was your 23rd of October. Lift in the daily volume. You could have taken it, through that high. You could have taken it through, next couple of days through the highs. You could have taken it through this high back at 11 cents, because you got nice support in volume, and it's playing off a major high low in your weekly chart. So I think that was a prime entry back there when you drill back down to your daily, and you can see how it just kicked on here. So ideally, I would love to see it pop up through, maybe through 10, pull back, sit on top of the MAs on your weekly, and then see if you can get a daily entry. See if it's supported, longer term, rather than just a short, quick trade. I mean, it could still go really well if you bought it here. It trades up through 10, 10 and a half. All right, any questions there, guys? Is there anything else we've missed? I think we might have missed Amazon. We'll check if we can get Amazon. AMZN stock. Amazon. Let's get that there. Just your data. I mean, Amazon's looking good. There's not much to say about that. I like the fact that we pressed down here, a good bounce back up. What we've done is held this really nice level at around 16 bucks, and we're pressing high. So you just got this continuation trade. What did you do on that one, Shirley? Entry at 18.39. So you're going to tick up to entry very shortly, and with a stop loss of 25 bucks. It's going to be somewhere around 16 or so, below that daily candle, I guess. Yep. I'm guessing you're going to have entry at the top of that candle. And then away we go. Okay. So yeah, that looks, for me, that's bullish. It's going up. If you're going to measure where we could go to, I tend to look at the first move up and taking that from from this major high low, and this could easily go back up to those highs around, say, 22,000. It could easily kick up nicely. So keep an eye on Amazon. I think that's if this is your secondary leg up, first leg up, second leg up, it could take us back into these previous highs, somewhere around here. So that could be a nice handy one, and just following it up from there. So that looks good. Again, this is the action you like to see. The fact that it's come down, what we've done is had a good, this is a good pop up. And then instead of getting this any extra selling, it takes us straight back down to the lows again. What it's doing is any selling pressure is getting soaked up, and it's getting soaked up at a fairly higher level at 1600. And then it's getting soaked up. Any sort of selling pressure that comes back in again, soaked back up, and it gets starting to lift. Sitting on top of the MAs here, set on top of the MAs here. This is your first decent correction. I mean, I know you had to give up quite a bit, but my trading style, you sit on top of the MA if you've got a lift in volume as well, and see if they can take you right up into these highs. Still going to be percentage-wise a really good trade. What was the other one you had there? Amazon and SPY. I've got that somewhere, haven't I? Yeah, so we've gone on to the SPY pretty much. That could easily just keep lifting up to there. So it's pretty much the same as Amazon. Sitting on top of the MAs here. Good, healthy, good little pullback. Buying the higher low, up we go. Potentially looking for another higher low. If we can come back, build a higher low over the next few days, few weeks, and then go again, that could easily take us through the highs. I mean, we could go straight through the highs from here to see how that goes. Anyway, I think that's about it, guys. We'll have to call it a day there. That's probably a bit of a mixed session there, really. A bit of a messy one. Sorry about the little problem in the middle there. But yeah, thanks very much for joining me. Any questions? If there's anything I missed or anything that doesn't make sense, I might have gone through things a bit quick today, a bit messed up, a bit jumbly, send us an email, support@tradesetup.com.au, no problem. Let me know and I can mark it up on a chart and send it off to you. Just email you back what I'm thinking and what I'm looking at, what sort of the key levels we've got an eye on. So yeah, let's just see what the rest of the market does. Today, up 33, we're holding, ASX is holding, what are we doing intraday? We're sort of going sideways here between 62 the last probably couple of hour or so, half an hour. So capped around that 62.20, 62.10 narrow range. We'll see if this can just push up into the close. See if we can get another 10 points into the close, up, finish up towards 62.20 and above, or what we do from here. But we'll keep an eye on it. Thanks for joining me, guys. We're back in on Monday at 12:30 again, and yeah, we'll see what the rest of the week brings us. See if the Bulls come out to play a bit more in the US and we can drag ourselves higher. See if we can get a good kick on. Ooh, what do we get to? 76.5. So just checking VTG. See if we can get a good little kick on some of these shares. So good luck, guys. We'll speak to you again then. See you.